This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
The hearts of the world go out to the suffering of Haiti. Americans open their pocketbooks to donate millions of dollars. But will their money go where it should, or into the hands of scammers? Good evening. Welcome to CTC, Connecting the Community. I'm Lloyd Patterson, and tonight we turn the spotlight on frauds and scams and how to avoid falling prey to them. Our guests tonight include Karen Sulcheski, Communications Director for the 14-county Northwest Florida region of the Better Business Bureau. She's a member of the Northwest Florida Financial Crimes Task Force. Troy Bach is an attorney who works in Special Prosecutions Economic Crime Division for the state attorney. He's a prosecutor. He's also a CPA, a certified public accountant, so he knows how to find out where the treasure is buried. Billy Wheeler is an investigator with the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office, BA in accounting. He's been with the Sheriff's Office since 2006, and he works on economic crimes. And we have with us Mr. Frank Kay, a retired Pensacola businessman and a resident who had a very close call on a scam just recently. We welcome you all to the program. Thanks for joining us here on Connecting tonight. We're talking about frauds and scams. Boy, do they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. First of all, since Haiti's been in the news a lot lately, let's talk a little bit about how to avoid that kind of scam. Karen, what are you seeing on that?
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of people looking to take advantage of the destruction there and hoping to prey on people's emotional responses to that. And so they're pretending to be a legitimate charity. They're asking for your donations, trying to get you to make that impulse giving decision. In reality, they may not be helping at all. They may not even be a legitimate charity.
Billy Wheeler, Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office, you see people out along the sides of the streets sometime with orange cans, and they have the vests on, and they'll say, "Help Haiti," or sometimes it's something else. What do you think the chances are for a fraud with that?
Chances are they're good as any other case like that. You just really don't know who you're dealing with at that point.
So it's best to not give unless you're absolutely sure.
Unless you're absolutely sure. I know the Better Business Bureau keeps out a lot of lists of charities and things like that. So if you don't do your homework on who you're giving to before, it's a great possibility that that could be a scam.
Troy, do you see many cases like this, or would this be at the state level where you have fraud, scams in the cases of like Haiti and charities?
We see a lot of fraud, but we personally don't see a lot of, charity frauds like that. There's been in the news recently Front Porch and stuff that was prosecuted where the administrator of Front Porch was found guilty, but it's more of that organizational fraud, and that's what we would prosecute generally at the state attorney's office.
Okay, and I know you're concerned about construction fraud, and we'll talk about that as we go on tonight on the program. We do have with us a man who had a very close call, Frank Kay, the retired businessman. You're sitting at home one day, you get a telephone call. What happens, Mr. Kay?
Well, it said, that was my grandson. He says, "Hi, Grandpa." Now this was, middle of the day, and I happened to be home alone. My wife went somewhere. And he said, "I need your help." He said, he said, "This is Brian, your grandson. This is Brian." And I said, "Brian?" He said,
You didn't recognize
"Yeah."
his voice.
And I said, "It doesn't sound like you." He said, "Don't you recognize me?" I said, "No, I don't." He said, "Well, I have a cold." I said, "Oh, okay, well, nice talking to you. What can I do for you?" And he said, "I need your help." He said, "I've been arrested for DUI in Niagara Falls, and I need your help. I need to come up with bail money to get out."
How much was he looking for?
Around $4,000. I forget the exact number. And he said, "Well, let me put the officer on the phone." And this man gets on the phone and he said, Mr. K, he said, we have your grandson, and he seems like a nice kid. And he said, so we don't want to put him in a cell. So if you can provide us with the bail money, we'll let him out. And he said, and I said, okay. He said, well, what we need is $4,000. I think it was $4,000.
And how was it going to get to you? How would you...
Yeah. He said, if you will, and I asked, and he said, if you will get the cash money, take it to Sam's, and they can wire cash money to us and send it in care of Brian K. and whatever it was. I think it was St. Catherine, Canada. And he said, get back, we need that in 1 hour. And I said, okay, I'll take care of it.
They were in a hurry.
Yeah, you had to be in a hurry.
And they'd already planted the seed in your head that here's your little grandson is going to be behind bars.
Yeah.
There. So
and
what kind of grandpa would you be to not help out?
Well, my first reaction is, why would he not call his father? And my second reaction was, well, he didn't want his dad to know. I mean, he's supposed to be in school in Orlando, Florida. Why is he up in Niagara Falls? And my reaction was at first, well, I'm going to help him out. But then, you know, it didn't register first because it didn't sound like him. And secondly, he was a pretty level-headed kid, not an angel, but he wasn't one that was going to take off from the middle of the school session and go up to Niagara Falls. And who would want to go to Niagara Falls in the middle of the winter when he's in Orlando, Florida anyway?
Right.
But so it was suspicious. And then I decided, well, I better call my son. So I called my son down in Hollywood, Florida, at his office, and I told him what had happened. He said, Dad, that is a scam. He said, you call the police now. He said, Brian is definitely in school in Orlando.
Okay, so you called the police and they came out.
They came out almost immediately.
That's great.
And they said, we're sure that positive that's a scam. And they said, I'm confident you won't be able to trace it. He said, they had said, if I hadn't mentioned it, that I need to get that to him within an hour.
Right, okay.
And so then realized it. What was, my son got a hold of our grandson, and so he called me, he said, hi, Grandpa, do you recognize my voice now?
Now this time you did. Now hold on there, Frank K. We want to come back to you. How would you, you guys are in the professionals in this field, how would you rate this kind of scam that Frank K. just about fell for?
It's very common. Unfortunately, it's something we hear a lot. It's something that's not going away, but the big red flags that we see from that is the urgency. They want you to hurry up and wire that money within an hour. Again, they're trying to get you to make that impulse decision so you don't actually think through, wait, that doesn't sound like my grandson. No, that doesn't sound like the type of thing that he would be doing. They're wanting you to make that impulse decision. The second big red flag is that they want you to wire money. You know, most of the time when there's somebody wanting you to wire funds, you need to just walk away. Because once that money hits the wire, it's impossible to know where it's going, and it's impossible to get it back if you realize later that it's a scam. You don't have the built-in protections that you do if you're paying with a credit card or something like that. So, you know, those are two big red flags whenever you get these kinds of calls or see these situations.
Okay, Billy Wheeler, if you would have been called out, you're in Santa Rosa County, he's in Escambia, but if you would have been called out, what would you have wanted to do about it?
Well, we as investigators in the investigation section have tools of the trade which we can try to backtrack certain things, maybe back to where the call is originating and things like that. So there are certain things that we look for, certain questions that we would ask for that. And then if we can't get an answer to that, we have other resources that we use. So we try to get some solution to that. And
but you're not going to drop it.
Oh no, we're going to take it to the fullest extent that we can, and if we need to get somebody else involved, another agency, then we do that the best that we can.
Troy, with the prosecutor's office, how much energy, with all the other crimes out there, is the state attorney going to be in putting in efforts of prosecuting somebody in a case like this?
Well, we always try to prosecute to the full extent of the law. However, a lot of the legwork is already done by the investigators, and so together we'll determine whether there's a case or not. And generally, by the time it gets filed on, there's been a lot of investigation work done, and then at that point, we don't file on something that's not a case, right? And
Right.
and then we'll just prosecute it. And so we don't have a quota or anything like that. We just simply, as it comes in, we prosecute it, and we've got a lot of prosecutors in the office. So.
Now, this scam was based out of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Canadians are they known for running these operations against people in Florida because of the Canada-Florida jet stream that brings in so many people from up north?
Yeah, typically lately I think there's been a lot more startup in Canada because they can sort of avoid or evade the law a lot easier. But it's true almost of any place in the world because now it's easy for people to have computers and phones that are untraceable, and so they can be located just about anywhere.
All right, the scam that Frank K. was almost victim to is just one of the many, and I tell you, these guys work overtime, don't they? Trying to think of new ways to scam people. If you think if they put their energy into actually doing something that was decent, they might be good at it. But anyway, now there's this scam. People are out of work. They're looking for jobs in Northwest Florida. And there are these listings that you'll see, for instance, on Craigslist. You know, send us your information, send us $50. What do you think of those?
Anytime you have to pay money to go to work, it's probably a scam. Remember the whole idea, you're getting a job so that they give you a paycheck. If you have to pay them money for training materials or for kind of behind the scenes tips on how to apply, we see this a lot with the federal jobs. They're actually doing a lot of investigations on that right now, claiming like, you know, behind the scenes secrets on how to apply to be a postal worker or something like that. You know, all of that information is freely available online. If you have to pay to go to work for them, it's probably a scam.
Billy?
Well, again, the big part in this is my experiences with Craigslist scams and things of that sort. The big part of the ones I've been a part of is the money transfer, the wiring money. You know, it's not your typical online purchase. They talk you into sending it, Western Union, MoneyGram, things of that sort. And then you send it, what you think is to a particular person at a particular city, but yet it's picked up by somebody else in a different location in a different city, and you obviously are out the money and you don't get the item that you purchased. So quite common there.
Troy, it seems like people want to get the money from Western Union, so what? It can't be traced back. Is there any legitimate reason why somebody would have to get the money by Western Union if it was a legitimate business offer?
Well, potentially there could always be a legitimate use for it, and yeah, we can actually send a subpoena to Western Union and get those money transfers.
You can recover the money that people have sent?
Not necessarily recover it, but we can see where in the world it went and who received it and signed for it. And because I've had cases in the past where money's been Jamaica and Europe and all over. But, you know, there again, it's common sense. You know, if you're buying something small, why are you even wiring money to begin with? And there's better ways. And I think the thing is like Frank did, he became his own investigator. In that case, it was sort of simple. He just called his son, you know, is this legitimate, or where's our grandson, right? And followed it up. But I think if people started investigating more, it would prevent them from becoming a victim more often. And there's plenty of websites you can get on, sunbiz.org, check out the business. You can get on, if it's a licensed provider like a contractor, let's say, then you could get on My Florida License and see if their license is valid. But simply even Googling companies and people and getting on the clerk's site and seeing if they have a criminal record, all those investigative tools are available to the public.
Yeah.
And
but sometimes people don't have that, and I'm thinking a lot of cases where senior citizens might not have the facility with Googling and this sort of techniques, but they always have a grandson or somebody in the family knows how to check these things, and you really don't want to do anything without talking to somebody else in the family, do you?
Well, and we do a lot of that legwork for you. If you call BBB to check out a particular company or a charity that's asking for your donation, we do a lot of that. We check to make sure that they have their licensing, particularly if they're an accredited business. That's one of the requirements to be accredited, is that you have whatever licensing or bonding or insurance that you're required to have for that industry. We make sure that's kept up to date. We can tell you how many complaints they've had. We work real closely with the state attorney, the attorney general, federal investigators, so we know if there's been government action taken against that company. We work with BBBs in the U.S. and Canada to make sure that it's not somebody who locates here, takes everybody's money, and then picks up and moves to another state. You know, we share information so that we have this kind of background on businesses and charities, so that you know who you're giving your money to.
So, Ed, we'll put up the website and information about the Better Business Bureau and other things as we go on in our program here tonight. So you don't worry, we'll come back to those subjects. Before we move into other kinds of scams and frauds, I know we can't cover them all in the time we have, but one that I've learned about recently is related to church scams. Not maybe from your own church, but somebody who promises you a high rate of return in church bonds or some such thing. Have you run across these before?
Personally, I haven't at this point, but I've heard about them, and I guess they're pretty common. And it's there again, it provides you know, fraudsters with a large pool of cash that's probably not watched as closely as someone's personal funds.
If they say they're from the same church, maybe not from the same exact church in town, but from a similar church in another town, and they're selling,
We've actually seen a lot of those, and again, because religious institutions don't have quite the same rigorous reporting standards that other charities do, it's a real easy way for them to try and take advantage of the system. We've seen a lot of the kind of pyramid or Ponzi schemes under the guise of being a religious effort. And so they say, you know, if you just pay in this little bit of money to be a part of this, we're going to pool everybody's funds and we're going to use it to make this big mission donation. But the problem is, of course, you pay all your money in, and like any Ponzi or pyramid scheme, at some point it's going to collapse. And so the ones who get in very early, they may actually get some funds back, but for the most part, you know, the money's just not there. And again, it's just trying to prey on your emotions, trying to prey on that goodwill, you know, oh, look, you're helping in the church, you're helping a religion, you know, it's a good charity kind of feeling. But it's one of those, again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And unfortunately, we're seeing more of those.
All right, now, construction scams. They've gotten a lot of attention here in Northwest Florida in recent years. Frank K., I hope you don't have any experience with being scammed on construction, on home improvement jobs, but those were just all over the place here a few years ago. Troy, have they tapered off some, or are they still going strong?
I think the actual scams themselves have tapered off just because construction is down so much, but at this point, now our office is still getting them because it takes a while to follow them through and investigate them. And it's really straightforward. It's just simply people coming into town from all over the U.S. and around the world, actually, and saying they're licensed contractors, and they have print up their own paperwork and with their license number on it. But it'll normally be the case that the general contractor's number that's listed on their paperwork either isn't theirs or it's a defunct number from a long time ago. But all those things could be verified. And I guess in general too, that's another thing that we're seeing is that paperwork that's provided to the potential victims is often forged. In most of the cases, actually.
And are they seeking upfront money? Are they looking for the, I've got to do a $5,000 job, but I need $2,000 up front?
We're often seeing $25,000. It's a lot of money up front, and people are coming up with it, especially after the hurricanes, because people are in dire straits. They need their house rebuilt, and so it's easy pickings. The criminals will basically just go down the street and sign everybody up and get big upfront payments, and they might start doing some work, but later on it really comes out that the work that they've done is so shoddy and they haven't pulled permits, and we've had cases where the electrical wiring behind the drywall, like to the outlets and stuff, isn't even there. So it's and
sometimes by the time you discover it, they've packed up and they've headed down the trail. Billy Wheeler, you run into those cases in Santa Rosa County?
As you said, usually those are more common around times of like emergencies like the hurricanes and things like that. Since then, things have seemed to level off, and we haven't gotten very many of those.
All right. Identity theft. That's the thing that we hear a lot about here in the media lately. It seems to be, instead of becoming less of a problem, it seems like it's getting to be more of a problem. With all the computers are more ways to steal your identity, and once they do that, they're off and running.
Well, everybody does tend to think computers online. BBB has done studies over the last several years looking into it, and actually the biggest thing that we see as far as breaches, it's still going back to a paper trail. Yes, you do need to take certain precautions whenever you're online. Make sure that your antivirus, your firewall, all that software is up to date. Make sure you know what kind of websites you're visiting, you know, if there's any kind of personal information being exchanged, your personal identifying information, financial information, that you're using a secure site. But overwhelmingly, the last study we did, about 88% of identity theft victims traced the breach back to something that happened through a paper trail. So it's stealing your purse or wallet, it's going through your mailbox, it's going through your trash. As unglamorous as it sounds, dumpster diving is still a very easy way for people to get information and steal your identity.
So shredding.
Shred it. BBB actually partners with Gilmore Services. We offer free shredding events at least twice a year. You can bring up to 50 pounds. We're looking to do one in the spring, probably in May. So it's a great service. Again, it's something easy that you can do. You know, there's so much that you can't control, but that is one of the simple things that you can do to protect yourself.
This is one of these cases where I don't want to make the program about me, but about 10 years ago, my wife and I, our identity was stolen, and some people went up through Tennessee and Arkansas and racked up about $40,000 in debt that was attributed to us. It didn't cost us anything. An alert department store clerk called and asked if we were there, and she caught it. But you know, we didn't lose any money on it. It's a big headache to get it straightened out, but you know, we're the victims. The stores lost money. It seems like it was difficult to prosecute because who's going to chase the crime down? The people, we were the victims. We're not going to go up and go around Tennessee and look for these guys. The police in Tennessee and Arkansas, the stores were made whole by the credit card company. So there's nobody who's really a victim standing around pounding the table demanding something be done. Is that a problem, you think, Troy? Well,
I guess figuring out where the actual crime occurred can be, but I mean, it's not that difficult. The more difficult thing, I guess, is that the victims are maybe scattered all over, and so they lose interest in prosecuting, in a sense. So they don't want to fly in for the trial and fly in for certain other things that go on with that, and they just want to be done with it. And so many, other than reporting it to the bank, you know, a lot of times they don't report it any further than that. And so
so you may never even hear about their being.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't report it, and that, I think that's true with a lot of the different frauds, that people for one reason or another are embarrassed, or it's just going to be too much of a hassle, especially if it's a smaller item. There's a lot of reasons people choose not to report.
So, Karen, it could be a lot worse. The scams, the frauds, the identity theft could be worse than even the official numbers that we get.
Probably. Again, a lot of it, you know, who wants to admit that they just gave $10,000 to a scammer? You know, nobody wants to come out and admit that, you know, they made that mistake. Everybody likes to think they're smarter than that. And I personally was a victim of identity theft years ago. I had my credit card stolen. I didn't know to report it to the police. I didn't know to report it to the Federal Trade Commission. I filed it with my credit card company, and they took care of everything, and I kind of left it at that. Now, my credit card company may have taken it further. You know, they've got a vested interest in getting their money back, and so they have pretty robust investigations departments, and they're pretty aggressive at trying to prevent it before it ever gets to that point. But yeah, we definitely need to do a better job of educating the community at everything that they need to do to report a theft.
Okay, and we're going to go back now to Frank Kay, the guy we started the program with. He was a near victim of a scam. Somebody called, said it was his grandson, and wanted $4,000 sent to Niagara Falls, Canada. And you didn't send it, but then later on, Your brother was hit by the same scam?
No, actually the other grandfather, and I mean what was silly in a way, he knew the whole story almost verbatim because I told him. And they tried the same thing. I mean, even saying, you know, this is Brian, your grandson, and tried the same pitch. They didn't vary it, which was surprising that they were so stupid because, you know, he knew about my deal, and this was almost verbatim the same thing. So he was locked out. By the way, to say something good, the police did attempt immediately to trace the phone call, and it wasn't traceable.
Okay, well,
but they said they were pretty sure that would be the case.
Thank goodness that you got away that time. But what's so sad, what I understand, is that people who have been scammed once are likely to be hit again and again. Well, there must be a sucker list someplace, is there, of people who've fallen for bad scams, frauds?
You know, we certainly hear rumors about, you know, whenever a scammer finds a victim that they're actually able to take money from, you know, there's money in selling that. And again, the scammers know a soft target. So if they're able to get money from you, you know, by pretending to take an interest in you, by telling a good story, by trying to get you into an investment scheme, whatever it is, you know, they may kind of continue to take that further and further and further and just kind of drag that story out. Oh, well, now we need more money because there's unexpected fees, or now we need more money because, oh, there's taxes that we didn't figure in. And so, you know, they're always coming up with ways to kind of add on to the story so that they're finding more ways to get money from you. And unfortunately, you know, we hear stories all the time of seniors who've lost their entire life savings because these stories sound so legitimate and they really believe, they want to believe that there's a reason to have to keep giving this money. They're going to get something back. And in reality, you know, the scammers have just left town. And
sometimes if they're senior citizens, they're maybe living alone, they might enjoy the conversation. Someone who is really talking to them, communicating good warmth and a real feeling. And it's so sad that people would get taken in like that. But we have some dastardly people out there in the world. Frank, last comment?
Yeah, we wondered how they got our names as the grandparents. And what we determined, he's a student at University of Central Florida in Orlando, is that they, you know, when the student registers, they get the name of the parents and grandparents so that they can solicit us for money.
And somebody got the grandparents' name. Frank, yeah. I'm glad you got away with that. Troy, with the State Attorney's Office, thank you very much for being here. Billy Wheeler, Santa Rosa Sheriff's Economic Crimes Investigator, and Karen Silcheski, Better Business Bureau. Great resource for scams and getting good information about companies. Thank you very much for watching tonight. I'm Lloyd Patterson. Good night.